Welcome to Sense of Style. I'm Stuart. 8 exceptional modern fragrances for mature men. And the operative word here is modern, which might seem counterintuitive, seeing as we're talking about mature men who come from kind of a different time. Fragrances have changed a lot over the years. However, the one major advantage to modern fragrances is just the sheer proliferation of them. It's unbelievable how many fragrances are released these days as compared to when I first started wearing fragrances in the 1990s. So there are 4,000 roughly releases every single year, and almost half of them now are for men. It used to be back in the day 90% of them were for women, but men have so many more options these days. That makes finding fragrances for mature men these days a whole lot easier. There's so many more options to talk about, and I have 8 really good ones for you today. Fragrance number 1, this is Guerlain L'Homme Idéal Eau de Parfum. And this is exactly what I'm talking about because this is a sweet cherry fragrance. And really, up until very recently, cherry was a note that was only for women. It was extremely rare for men to wear it. I was reading an article recently by Beth Butterfield. She was an editor at Fragrantica, and she was listing the 7 best cherry fragrances. Not surprisingly, this was the only fragrance for men that made the list because men just didn't wear fragrances. Even today, women still dominate the cherry fragrance market, but this one was a bit of a game changer. It is a sweet cherry fragrance. There's cherry, there's vanilla, there's tonka, there's also almond. So it's a little bit of a gourmand, but this is for men. You can tell by the voting on Fragrantica, generally men tend to prefer it, and that's because, yes, it's got the sweet cherry, but there's also a ton of leather and incense that pull this in an unmistakably masculine direction. Perfumers are now experimenting with different notes for men by adding, traditionally female notes with more masculine ones, and now we get an option like this, and my God, is this unbelievably popular. And what I like about this for mature men is it's not a typical modern gourmand that's tons and tons of vanilla and projects like an absolute beast. There's a subtlety to this. There is a powderiness, at least not technically, but it has a powdery, a subtle feel, a sophisticated feel that will definitely appeal to mature men. And it has very solid performance aside from that. So yeah, fantastic. Fragrance number 2, this is Creed's Royal Oud. And this was a fragrance designed to smell like the rich woods of a Persian palace. And that's Persia, Iran, and it's famous for its woods. And there are a lot of woods in this fragrance. Don't be put off by the Royal Oud name. It was very popular to name fragrances after Oud in 2011 when this came out. It was very, very trendy. But this is just a very woody fragrance, and oud is more of an accent note here. So you get the oud, you also get the powdery sandalwood and a lot of cedar. So it's the compilation of the woods that make this fantastic. And if you've ever been up into like an attic with a lot of bare wood, you find that it gets musky pretty quickly. And this has a lot of musk as well, although it does not smell like an attic. It really does smell palatial, really high end. So it's got an addition of musk. It's also got angelica, which is a musky herb. And then it has galbanum, which is a plant that releases this resinous gum that's got a very green feel to it. And you get the green component early on as well. So you get the green, you get the muskiness, you get the woodiness, you get excellent performance. The price is pretty high, but it's absolutely classic fragrance and it works really well for older gentlemen. Fragrance number 3, this is Prada Luna Rossa Black. And the perfumer of this fragrance was Daniela Roche-Andrier. And she's been a top perfumer at Prada and other places for quite a while. And in the industry, she is known as the Queen of Iris. She made Prada L'Homme after all. But the interesting thing about this fragrance is there's no iris in it, and yet it's very powdery. So what she did here was take the ambery components and make them more powdery. I didn't even know that was possible. Apparently it is. And so this is a powdery ambery fragrance. it is also quite musky. This also has Angelica, which is the same note as in Royal Oud. This also has musk as well. And so you get an ambery, musky quality. And the great thing about this and Royal Oud is musky elements are fairly traditional. So you're getting the musky element, the more mature, something that we're more familiar with element, to go with the more modern element, in this case, the amber. Really good performance on top of that. Fragrance number 4 is Jean Paul Gaultier's LeBeau Paradise Garden. And the great thing about this fragrance is it makes that sweet coconut of the LeBeau line, this particular original EDT and the parfum, accessible to more mature people, because this is not just sweet coconut. This is meant to smell like a Garden of Eden kind of thing. And so this fragrance has more woods, which you would expect in a garden. It has green facets, things like fig, which can be done in a very green way, and mint. And so the sweetness is here. You've got the tonka and you've got the coconut, but it is subsumed by the green elements, by the woody elements. And on top of that, it also makes it more wearable because it's refreshing. You can wear something like this in the summer. But in the context of this video, it is the green elements that make it more mature that I'm going for. It's always tricky getting Jean Paul Gaultier fragrances for mature men because it tends to be more of a fun, party, youthful house, but this would be a great option, especially in warm weather. Fragrance number 5, this is Dunhill Icon, a fresh, spicy, aromatic fragrance that's great for the office. This one's fairly simple. When I look at the house of Dunhill, it tends to be very upscale. They sell tobacco, expensive cigars, things like that. And yet a lot of their fragrances tend to be very youthful. But this one is definitely a more mature offering with that fresh spiciness in particular. So this is like a neroli bomb. Neroli is a type of orange blossom that's citrusy and fresh. There's a lot of black pepper to back it up. And then there are like 5 either herbal or green notes. I think it does lean more green. There's petitgrain that takes it in a green direction. It makes it quite fresh. And so this is a very fresh, I would say, office, almost more formal fragrance, which is odd because it's quite inexpensive. The performance is excellent. The bottle, it's very classy, very minimalist. I like the name here. Beautiful fragrance. Relatively modern as well. There's nothing old-fashioned about this. Just works. Fragrance number 6, this is Montblanc Explorer, a fragrance that is seen as a clone of Creed's Aventus. However, there's more to it than that because this isn't an exact clone. Creed Aventus has a very juicy pineapple note. This doesn't use pineapple. It uses bergamot. So while it's still juicy, it's not quite as sweet. And then you've got a smoky birch in Aventus. This uses a combination of akagali wood, which is a woody aroma chemical, and vetiver. So it's not quite as smoky. So this is more of a tamer version of Creed Aventus. And I think, and I really do think this, a more mature version. Now, some people struggle with performance. I used to. I'm assuming my bottle macerated and the performance got a lot better. Now I get, 5-6 hours, no problem. At first it was struggled, but I like that subtle element to the Aventus feel that you get with this as compared to something like Club de Nuit Intense Man. To me, it just feels more mature. It doesn't feel like so beast mode. So I think this is a perfectly good option for a mature man. It is definitely a more muted, a classier version of Aventus. Fragrance number 7 is Dior Homme 2020, another woody, musky fragrance, but this one is definitely more minimalist than Royal Oud. There's a lot of woods in here. It has cedar, vetiver, isoe super, and cashmerean, which is a musky, woody note. It also has musk, but it really doesn't have too much more than that. It really focuses on the woods. There's a little bit of resin. There's elemi in this, but the minimalism is very elegant, a very sophisticated quality, and it really works here. It's a great, I think, follow-up to the original Dior line, which had a lot of iris that off-put a lot of people. This somehow managed to be elegant and classy like Dior is, without necessarily alienating people by it being a floral. I think they did a great job. The scent itself is lovely. This is odd thing is this is marketed sometimes. I've seen it a couple times marketed as a great fragrance for young gentlemen, but I don't buy that at all. Any gentleman of any age can wear this, and I definitely think the musky element adds to the maturity of it. Fragrance number 8, this is Lattafa's Liam, and this is a clone fragrance that's quite inexpensive. And I wanted to balance out the list between expensive and inexpensive fragrances because not everybody has a ton of money to spend on fragrances, and not everybody wants to prioritize fragrances the way I do. So both this and Dunhill Icon are quite inexpensive. But the great thing about this is it clones a really nice fragrance that I think balances being both modern and mature really well, which is BDK Parfums Gris Charnel. So the modern elements here are the vanilla. There's a fair bit of sweetness, but there's also a sophisticated, more mature element with a lot of iris. So there's a powdery quality. And then I think the sweetness is balanced really nicely with a warm, spicy cardamom. There's a couple of other notes in here that are interesting, like tea. But overall, I think this balances things out really well. So hopefully there's something on this list for you. I tried to balance out modernity with maturity. I tried to put a bunch of different options on here. Pricey, inexpensive, some niche, some designer. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.